salon dominated access to art throughout the time of realism. The salon system, however, was not successful in accommodating an ever-increasing amount of artists, so artist-dealer relationships ended up flourishing. Some wealthier artists were able to move away from the salon, and this included artists like Manet and Courbet. In 1874, Impressionists had their first group exhibition. These artists were looking for open-minded collectors and dealers who were willing to take a risk by collecting works by younger artists. Historically, there were many changes occurring in Paris at this time. The Germans had occupied 16 regions of Paris before finally leaving in 1873. Subsequently, the French discharged a 5 billion franc indemnity in only 2 years' time, were paid quickly due to significant profits from the booming wine industry. A direct result of these major economic changes was the ease at which the Impressionists were selling their works. Manet sold for 22,000 francs in the months following his success at the 1873 Salon, while Monet earned 24,800 francs from the painting sales over the next 12 months. Major changes were occurring in commercial exchange. The art trade was quite speculative, and the new art dealer system, used in the new market of Impressionism, was very unpredictable. Degas and other followers of Manet formed a joint stock company of artists. They organised exhibitions of Impressionist works. They rebuked the salon system by not using traditional framing. They also opened their gallery to the public. However, the public was weary. They looked at the work as being unfinished. However, the Impressionists continued to exhibit, always trying to find a market for their work. Impressionists begged Paul Durand-Ruel for money, and while he had bad luck with French buyers who were opposed to these works on the basis of them being avant-garde, he did sell well to American buyers. Photographer Nadar lent his studio to be the venue for this exhibition. When it opened to the public, visitors had to pay 1 franc for entry, which was the same price at the Salon. Despite advertisements in over 50 newspapers, the realist Salon did not attract anything like the amount of visitors to the Salon des Refusés in 1863. Durand-Ruel eventually curated a New York exhibition for the Impressionists, as there was an increasing interest from American collectors, who had extra money to invest in paintings. One of the most significant American collectors was Louisine Havemeyer, a friend of the American Impressionist painter Mary Cassatt. By the 1890s, she was buying works by Monet, Pissarro, Degas, and Cézanne, which total more than 100 Impressionist paintings in her collection, which was housed on the 5th Avenue and East 66th Street in Manhattan. Other collectors around the turn of the century were taking note of the Impressionists and began taking risks investing in their artwork, despite the uncertainty surrounding this new style. Gwendoline and Margaret Davies, both born in the 1880s, were sisters from Wales who used their inheritance to collect French Impressionist painting and were some of the first people in Britain to collect such works. All of this attention was combined with some artists resisting the fame and fortune. Paul Lafont, who wrote Degas' biography, reflected on how the artist refused to allow buyers to his studio nor discuss prices. One story was told of how Degas tried to get rid of an insistent American collector by saying that he had charged a fixed price of 100,000 francs for all of his works, despite the size or medium. 10 paintings by Manet were acquired into the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York in 1929, as part of the bequest of Louisine Havemeyer. Prices for Manet's paintings rose as his presence in museums' collections increased. In the 1920s, some of his work was selling for more than 400,000 francs, and by the 1950s, the number of his canvases exceeded 1 million francs, and by the 1970s, they totaled over $1 million US. There was an Impressionist art bubble in the late 1980s, driven by Japanese demand for Impressionist works. It appealed to more conservative tastes. Many wealthy people liked investing in Impressionist masterpieces as they considered them a safe bet. Today, famous Impressionist paintings easily sell in the tens of millions of dollars. The Impressionist art market has maintained an average strength over the past half-century. In the last 10 years, however, there has been a number of movements due to economic externalities. There has been a shift in the market towards more contemporary art as the great Impressionist works become increasingly difficult to find. Many experts feel that the level of quality has dipped since the peak of the market in the summer of 2010. Suzanne Georgi, the head of Citi Private Bank's Art Advisory Service, says this time around, the auction houses don't have any great estates. They don't have any iconic works. Both London and New York sales records of Impressionist and modern work confirm the strength of the market. They suggest a possible slump in volume. Average prices for the evening sales remain consistent at the 2 million level, with brief crests driven by exceptional sales such as the Giacometti Walking Man No. 1 in London in the summer of 2010, which sold for 104.3 million. The market centres tend to alternate between New York and London, depending on whether the works come to market. Volatility in relation to art should be understood as the fluctuations of not only the amount of work being bought, but also the locations in which the work is being sold. An important way to determine and understand the volatility is through analysis of auction results from 5 years to the present. Research focused on these results from the auction houses Sotheby's and Christie's shows a number of interesting outcomes. Looking at Sotheby's total sales graph, one can see that both London and New York took major drops in their sales in 2009. By 2010, London holds a 50% gain on New York. By looking at Christie's results as of late, neither London or New York are leading in relation to their sales. Pre-2009, both Christie's and Sotheby's saw New York as their market focus. Now, in 2011, we see that Christie's London is not seeing the same spike that Sotheby's is. Showing that both companies suffered the same downfall throughout 2008-2009, one can see their sale differences after this time period. To be direct, this is a volatile market. It has always been a successful high-end sector in the art world, and therefore is heavily affected by outside national and international externalities, economic or otherwise. These spikes and drops are coherent of this market. Whilst there has been movement, this market has a long road in relation to seeing the prices it was seeing pre-2008-2009. The rise and falls of the market lately can be related in context to the 1980s Impressionist boom. Both declines were affected by externalities beyond their control. This was not an internal combustion. Due to the large amounts of money involved in this sector of the market, it makes sense to see these changes and shifts. High net worth individuals involved in these transactions are affected by these externalities. In the 1980s boom, it was the real estate crash in Japan that affected the market. In the case of the present, it was the global financial crisis, among other possible factors, which have affected this sector of the art market. An associate at Munich's Gallery Thomas booth at Art Basel Miami confirmed that Impressionist works rarely make it to the marketplace. Gallery Thomas was fortunate to have one Impressionist work, Edgar Degas' La Promenade à Cheval, for sale at Art Basel. The real question about the Impressionist and modern art market is whether summer of 2010 was the peak of the market, or if we are simply seeing a brief recession driven by limited supply of the most highly sought after work. In the current economic climate, investors are drawn to art as a tangible investment, thus creating a seller's market. In order to better grasp the Impressionist market, one only needs to look at the 8 most successful artists. 20% of these artists, Degas, Monet, Cassatt, Cézanne, Pissarro, Manet, Sisley, and Renoir, consistently appear in the top 25 ranked artists in the world. Even more impressive is that in 2007, 2009 and 2010, 50% of the above-mentioned artists were ranked in the world's top 25. It is clear to see that Impressionism is consistently represented at auction, and on top of that, consistently does well. Even from a distance, one can see that the graphs of each individual artist's revenue are consistently fluctuating, but never disappearing. If we look outside of pure revenue numbers, Impressionism holds itself well in the actual amount of work sold. In the graph shown, it is clear that no matter the fluctuation in price of artwork, the amount sold is consistent year after year, showing almost little or no wane in interest in Impressionist art. In a study in the Journal of Empirical Economics, Andrew C. Worthington and Helen Higg concluded that Impressionism is the least affected art category in the correlation between the equity market and the art market. In other words, When the equity market rises or falls, the market for Impressionism is untouched. What this means for the future of Impressionism is that the market for such works will most likely always hold strong. Although art trends depend on the taste of the modern age, Impressionist artists have held up in the auctions and continue to form a solid portion of sales, even decades after their dominance. In an interview with Julian Dawes, the junior specialist within the Impressionist and Modern Art department at Sotheby's, she stated, "The Chinese market has grown in importance in the global art market. There is definitely the feeling that China will outgrow the US and European markets. The auction houses in China that opened 5 years ago have already surpassed Sotheby's and Christie's in their scale and size. There are two issues with such a rapidly growing market. One being that Chinese buyers enjoy purchasing Impressionist works because even though they face their own authenticity issues, they are big on the authenticity and provenance when buying Impressionist art abroad. Another issue that the auction house in New York has in the future is that the Impressionist works that are sold in China will not be circulated back out of China, meaning the works will only be sold within the country in the future and won't resurface on the international art market. What is important to remember is that Impressionist works are the global favourite because the artists are internationally the most recognised names. Historically, they are legitimate and always hold a strong confidence in the global art market. That is also the reason that Impressionist artworks are always a safe bet, because they are easy to move, invest as an asset, and they will always sell in any market. Whether they sell in emerging markets or in long-established ones, the demand for artists with excellent provenance and historical significance will continue to develop into the future."